What is going on, everyone? My name's Andy. Welcome to another FPL video, and today we're looking at my first draft free hit team for Game Week 32, which, as we know, is a double game week, so lots and lots to chat about. I've had a little bit of a go at this point, putting the team together. This is the first proper draft, I would say. Obviously, this is probably likely to change as the course of the international break goes on, but I think there's a core that won't change too much. And it's just really the fringe players that I'm still undecided on. So I'm going to go through the team and then kind of who I'm thinking about maybe changing, and also tackling questions that I think people will come up with, such as why haven't you got X player, or why haven't you covered X team? So let's just jump straight into it. So this is my current free hit team. Like I said, first proper draft, and I've got unlimited transfers. Works a bit like a wild card because I'm making as many transfers, substitutions, etc. that I want up until the deadline. And obviously then that will be my final team. There is a couple of placeholders, or at least one in particular, which is Doherty. Jimenez potentially as well, but basically I've got a lot of money tied up in them. And while I can sell them and buy them back, if I do that, I have to pay full price. So I think Jimenez I bought for 5.5. I think I got a selling value around 6.1 or 6.2. So if I sell him, I'll have to buy him back for 6.9 million. So he's staying for now, even though he might be in the final team, whereas Doherty will almost certainly change to a Man United defender. But I'll talk about that more. Otherwise, I've covered it with triple City. I think depending on injury news or Pep saying 100% of these players will get rotated, which is very unlikely. Sterling and Aguero almost nailed in my team. I want one of them as captain, currently Aguero. Probably talk more about that as the week goes on. But one of them will definitely be captain. And then right now I've gone for Laporte instead of an attacker, but I'll talk about that soon. And then triple Chelsea, I think with Cardiff away and Brighton at home, it was very hard not to go for Chelsea. Even though recently we're not really too sure how they're going to perform under Sarri. They play okay in the 1 minute, and then the next minute they're losing 2-0 to Everton. And yes, Hazard nearly came close to scoring 1 or 2 times in that game. But I think with those fixtures, you've got to kind of cover Chelsea, as it were. And then I've got double Man United, although like I say, Doherty will probably become a Man United defender, which would then be triple Man United. So 9 of my team will consist of Man United, Chelsea, and Man City. So I'm kind of got all eggs in one basket, but I feel like I've got to do that. And then Jimenez up front, and then right now Milivojevic is my 4th midfielder of choice. I'll talk more about that in a minute. That spot is proving a bit tricky given the money that I've got to spend. And then the bench I don't really care about. You'd imagine, or you'd at least hope, that if you build a free hit team in a double game, they'll play at least one game, if not both of them. So I'm not expecting to call upon my bench too. So I might even make it even cheaper than it is now. There's cheaper midfielder than Camarasa. There's cheaper defenders than Wan-Bissaka and Mariappa. So talk about that first. So talking about kind of things that I'm thinking about and I know that will be asked is no Spurs players, and specifically a lot of people looking at Harry Kane. And I've got to be honest, I'm not too sold on Spurs. The first game really puts me off, Liverpool away. That is one of, if not the best defensive team in the league. Obviously up there with Man City for sure, but Liverpool incredibly hard to score against, and obviously it's a top 6 game and Spurs are a good side and they could score against them. Maybe they'll even get 2 or 3 goals. But I wouldn't put much money on that happening. So I just feel the first game is very hard to predict points from. So then you've got their second game, which is against Crystal Palace at home. Now, I don't tend to think about past records too much, but I think in the last 5 or 6 games people have been talking about between Spurs and Crystal Palace. Yes, Spurs have won, and obviously Kane could get the goal, but they've only won 1-0, so it's not been that easy for them to score multiple goals past them. And it's the first game at the new stadium for Spurs. Now, a lot of people saying, they'll be G'd up, and I'm sure Kane will shoot a hell of a lot in that game because he'll want to be the first scorer. He'll want to have his name on the team sheet, on the score sheet, in the new stadium. But at the same time, it could take them time to bed in, get used to the new pitch. So it depends how you want to look at it. But the Liverpool game just puts me off. Additionally, he's 12.5 million. I don't really want to captain someone that's playing Liverpool. That's a lot of money to spend on a player that I'm not going to captain, and I've got no hesitation that he'll probably score. He might even score in both games. But I'm just hopeful that by going for a cheaper attacker, I can put that money in elsewhere, and that'll cover me better. I've seen some fairly good free hit teams with Kane in, but I think to get really good, you've got to go 4-3-3, which is not completely out of the question, especially when like Milivojevic or Deulofeu is looking like being my 4th mid. Arguably, I should go for a more expensive defender, so that's something to think about. But Spurs just probably not for me. Son at the most, I think, for 8.6. Don't really want to spend too much, again, on a team that's playing Liverpool away. And then defender-wise, the fullbacks are probably going to get rotated. I think Davern missed a game recently. Vertonghen is probably going to play. But he's quite expensive and not necessarily that much goal threat. And again, I would expect Liverpool to score in that game. So I'm not going for Spurs players currently, but definitely let me know below what you think of them, especially Harry Kane. Man United returned to form. Obviously, they started off under Solskjaer really well. A lot of people were saying they were playing too well, got a bit lucky, and maybe they started to regress a little. Obviously, the Wolves result in the FA Cup, not good. I do think injuries had a part to play in that. Matic went out, so Pogba had to play further back. Lingard was injured. Martial hasn't been fully fit. So we've not had our kind of front three of Rashford, Lingard, Martial, with Pogba able to push further forward. So let's see what happens over the international break. Hopefully they'll return to form. I think they're playing two okay sides. I wouldn't say they're brilliant to play against, Wolves and Watford. But given that they've got FA Cup game to worry about, a semi-final at that, it could be a good time for Man United to play either of those. Even though I'd expect them on a normal day to cause them problems, obviously Wolves did cause them problems in the FA Cup. I think Man United could return to form over this double game week. So I'm not too hesitant at getting their players in. But I'll talk more about kind of Rashford and stuff in a sec. Will Jimenez be rested? I mean, you could say that about any, Brighton, Watford, or Wolves, all got FA Cup semi-finals. Wolves and Watford in particular are obviously pretty safe. They're not going to get relegated. There is a 7th spot to potentially play for, because if Man City do win the FA Cup, which obviously those teams will be hoping doesn't happen, the 7th spot in the league will get a European place. So maybe they'll have that on their mind. But I just think if there's a chance that Jimenez plays twice, there's definitely points in it for him, because he's had points all season, especially against top clubs as well. So given his value, I'm kind of tempted to keep him, to be honest. There's a little part of me that worries that he won't play twice. But given how good he's been, I'm quite loath to get rid of him, if I'm honest. And then Chelsea, can they be trusted? Like I've already kind of talked about briefly, I just think you can't ignore Cardiff away and Brighton at home. Hazard on his day, Higuain on his day can get points against those sides. Hazard's already got a hat-trick against Cardiff this season, albeit at home. So I'm basically covering their defence, because I'm not too sure about having double attack. It would mean Higuain, I'd have to find some money from somewhere, which is doable. And I think Cardiff away and Brighton at home, it's not the worst punt, to be honest. Obviously, he did well, I think it was the Huddersfield game, and hasn't done too much since. But if he plays both games, I don't see why he wouldn't get points. So right now, just because of the way I've structured my team, it's double Chelsea defence. But that could change to Higuain as this international break goes on. But I'm fairly confident I will stick with two defensive options. Azpilicueta or David Luiz or Rudiger, it's really close. I've tried looking at stats and stuff to kind of separate them. I mean, Azpilicueta and Rudiger may be better for minutes than Luiz, but because we have seen Luiz rested. But ultimately, bonus points, chances created and stuff like that, they're all so close, so I find it quite difficult. So Azpilicueta is about as nailed as it gets. That's why I've gone for him and the goalkeeper currently. Which Man United defender? So a lot of people looking at Lindelof, people talking about that his, I think his fiance or girlfriend or wife, I think she's wife, is pregnant, and then maybe he'll miss a game. We'll have to wait for further news on that. Luke Shaw's 5.1, but I think he's still got a chance of getting suspended if he gets a yellow card in his next game, so that's a worry. I quite like Chris Smalling at 5.6 million if I could afford it. We've seen him score goals from corners and free kicks before, so I think he's got a bit of goal threat. I think he'll play both games as well, so he's the one I'm looking at. Ashley Young potentially as well as more of an attacking option for kind of crosses, free kicks. He takes some free kicks at least, and obviously just cross from open play. So he could be an option, but I think Chris Smalling's the one I'm looking at. So I'm probably going to go for Man United defender because of the fixtures. And then Milivojevic just for penalties. I don't know what to think about Milivojevic. He does get his fair share of penalties this season, and he did last season. And if Zaha and Townsend are fully fit and playing, then they're the ones that kind of contribute to winning these penalties. And Huddersfield at home is a pretty good game. And I think he's had a couple of big chances in the last 4. I'm not expecting him to score from open play necessarily, but I just think for guaranteed minutes and on penalties, he might be the better option. Now, there's Deulofeu as well, who I quite like for Watford. Obviously, Man United away is tough, but if he gets minutes in that Fulham at home game, then there's definitely points there. We've seen him get a hat-trick recently, not necessarily expecting that. But Fulham, there's definitely points in it for him. So he's the other one I'm looking at. Otherwise, around that price, I've got to be honest, there's not too much that takes my fancy. So Milivojevic is almost in there just because of the penalties, and I don't really like that. But at the same time, I can quite easily see him getting one in either game, Huddersfield for sure, and maybe even against Spurs if they can really test that defence. Because yes, Spurs will be up for it, but that might make them quite tense and kind of edgy and wanting to try and get the win and maybe trying a little bit too hard. And obviously you can never predict penalties, but yeah, that's why Milivojevic is in currently. But he might get sorted out for Deulofeu if I think he might get minutes in both games. Lukaku in or out? I mean, the one problem about an international break is you get a lot of injuries and you're not sure whether they're legit or just international break injuries. Rashford's just left the England squad and he's come back to Manchester to get treatment. So will he be fit and available? Like, if they're both playing, a lot of it depends on Lingard and Martial. Because if everyone's fit in that Man United team, we've seen before under Solskjaer that Lukaku's the one that comes out, Rashford plays centre forward and Martial and Lingard flank him. If that happens, Rashford's absolutely worth his price. Now, if Lukaku is playing, that's going to probably push Rashford wide, and I think the points potential goes down a bit. So, going to have to wait and see what happens with the Man United front kind of forward options. Obviously, if either of them are ruled out, that is absolutely a no-go. If Lingard and Martial aren't fit and Lukaku's going to play up front, I might have to look at rejigging funds around, potentially dropping Kepa down to someone like Foster for Watford. But right now, I'm quite happy with Rashford, and I really like the structure of this team. So, I'm going to stick with Rashford. And kind of, I guess, from an FPL point of view, hope that Lukaku's out, but I don't want that from a, obviously, Man United point of view. And then City, triple attack or one defender. So I think a lot of people going for Sterling and Aguero plus one other. So people looking at like Bernardo Silva, David Silva, and the problem with Man City is we never know who's going to play twice. But I think, especially if Otamendi is out, Laporte has probably got a good chance of that. 2 clean sheet opportunities, Fulham and Cardiff. I just think the points that Bernardo Silva's got, even though his underlying stats are quite good, and obviously Pep really rates him, and he's going to probably play in both games, or at least he's got a very good chance. I'm just not sure he's necessarily going to massively outscore Laporte. And if Laporte plays twice, we know he's got a bit of goal threat as well. I think I'd like to take the risk, as it were, and play him instead. And even if I put Bernardo Silva in, I mean, who would I swap out? I can't afford Milivojevic straight out, although I probably could come up with the money. But then I'd have to find someone else for Laporte, and I've already got triple Chelsea, so do I really want to go 2 Man United defenders? I'm not sure about that either. And obviously a lot of people looking at Jeffrey Schlupp at Crystal Palace, but again, I'm not overly sold on him. I think the Tottenham game puts me off, even though Huddersfield looks like a really good game for a clean sheet. And obviously we have already mentioned that Crystal Palace and Spurs is quite low scoring, so Schlupp could be an option. But right now, I'm pretty confident with that team. I'm pretty happy with it. Milivojevic is probably the one I'm not too sure about. Otherwise, I'm not too sure if there's any major changes I will make. Obviously, that's famous last words. Injuries and stuff happen. If Rashford's out or Lukaku's out, that could change it up. People talking about Pogba as well. Has he kind of gone downhill a bit? I think Matic being out really affected him. He wasn't able to get as far forward. And again, he would probably benefit from Lukaku being out, playing the balls in behind for Rashford to run onto. Good for assists. But also being able to license to get forward with Matic. Playing that deeper role would also help him. So again, we're going to have to monitor injuries and stuff over the break. And then Hazard, really, it's just I want an attacker from Chelsea, and I think I trust him a bit more than Higuain. So I'm going to leave it there because I think there's probably going to be lots of questions you're going to put in the comments below. I know lots of people will ask me, why haven't you got X player? Why have you got this player? And obviously there's still loads of questions to answer because of the international break. So yeah, I'll definitely do my team there. Let me know if you've got any comments about it below. So that's it for this video. Thanks very much for watching. As always, if you did enjoy the video, and leave a like. Always want to leave a like for a free hit and double game week video. And if you've got any comments on what I've said, if you've got any further questions, leave a comment below. I'm probably going to aim to do another video over the weekend, maybe Sunday or Monday, to go through any questions you've got outstanding before the normal preview and the stream next week. So plenty more content to come before the international break is up. Otherwise, I'll leave this video there. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers all.